Welcome to another episode of True Self with KB. So I'm Camilla B, aka KB, and I am here with my sister, and I am excited for us to talk about. This is gonna be a tough one, actually.
Quite.
I am so nervous about this topic because I know it's gonna I feel like touch on certain things or reveal things too, because I pray that that happens too. So we're here to talk about sibling trauma. Ooh, Lord.
Hey, I'm JB. I'm Jamila Bryan, and I am the big sister. Well, on dad's side, I'm the big sister.
Yeah, she's my older sister on my dad's side. Okay, so the reason I remember sometime last year, or was it the year before? I don't even remember. Last year, right?
It might have been 2 years ago. It's been a while.
Oh my God. Oh, whoa, yeah, it might be. You
Because you
reached
did
out
your
to me.
episode. It was last year. Your episode was, or was it the year before?
It was a year. The episode that she's referring to, was it the self-awareness one, and we touched on trauma on that one, I
Yeah.
think 2
Mhm.
seasons ago.
Yep.
So dang, yeah, that was. So I remember you reaching out to me saying, how you gonna talk about trauma without me? And I was like,
That was.
oh, that's true. But I never really clicked until recently that I should definitely try to do it with you. um so yeah, this is our finally getting here to talk about sibling trauma. So I'm
Before
ready.
we get into your question, let me
Okay.
say why I wanted to have the conversation, right? So I think that based on and my journey through this trauma work has led me to become a social worker. So I'm a master's social
Mm,
worker and I have a master's in education. I'm going to do another master's in trauma and disaster mental health. And so, based on just my own personal work alongside my professional work, I felt like there was so much of me that kept coming up, right, throughout this work. The one thing you learn in social work school is all of your stuff has to be worked out in order for you to be a really good clinician, right?
mm,
Who can be neutral in her work and can show up in spaces where you're not going to have transference and counter transference happening between you and your clients. So I've been forced by my profession to really do a lot of this work. And as I was going through this work, I had to reconcile a lot of things in my life, a lot of relationships with people. And so when I saw that episode, I was just like, oh my God, like I've been doing this work professionally and personally. And I felt like this would be a great topic for us to have a conversation around because we share in that trauma, right?
yeah.
Even though there are gaps in between families and stuff, we still share in big part of who we are. We share in that trauma. And so I
Yeah.
just felt that would be a really good conversation for us to have. And I hope from this episode with just you and I, we can extend it out to more of our siblings because I think there's a lot more. There's
Gosh.
generations that are now happening that we might
Mm,
touch on in this episode, right? So that's kind of like my reasoning and why I thought it was important for us to really like um have this conversation and do this work. Cause right, I think this is like work that we're doing.
yeah, it's been a long journey
Oh,
for
story.
myself. That's just like kind of recognizing what I take with me. That's what initially you learn this trauma and you take it with you in
Absolutely.
other relationships and in your child's life, my future child. So
Mhm.
it's like I kind of thought about like me working on things before I find my guy. You know what I mean? That's how it kind of thought to me. Like, let me work on myself. Let me get whole first before I find or get married or have children. Because I think that's something I realize that broken people end up raising other broken people. You know what I mean? It's inevitable. Like, you're never going to get things perfect.
Right.
But that's something I just was like, kind of want to work on, just like the inner work first. So that's how it kind of started out for me.
Hmm. I
Because,
was hoping that was one of your questions for me too. Like, how did I end up here?
oh, yeah, it is there.
So I'll wait to answer that part. Yeah. So chime
Yeah,
in on that
so
part.
it's like, what was the point that you realized, um, yeah, I might have to work on myself? You said you started working on your degrees and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, prior to my degrees, I think I started to Well, to be honest, I always wanted better. I wanted things to be better. Um, I've learned now that age has a big part of when you feel comfortable in getting to this work, or when you're at the point where you're mature enough, or developmentally well enough to kind of like embark on that journey. So I became a mom at 28, and I believe that you can't just talk about your parents and the bad job they did if you aren't willing to do a better job. And
Mm,
so my son is going to be 13 in October. And when I
mm,
became a mom, I decided that if you want to do better, you have to actually figure out how better looks and how you're going to actually do it. And
mhm,
so I started going to therapy when I was pregnant with my son. And I stayed with that therapist for 10 years. And a lot of things were revealed, were like undone. A lot of that's kind of like over the years I've gone to therapy, but I was focused on how was I going to be a better mom? What were the things that I thought that my parents didn't do well that I didn't want to replicate as a parent? And how was I
mm,
not going to replicate it, right? Because you can say you don't want to replicate it, but you have to actually learn how not to replicate it.
yeah.
And not that some of it doesn't show up, because the work is never done. It's a, you know, it's an
You better
ongoing
preach on that.
it's an ongoing process. So, girl, you're gonna be waiting forever for that husband if you don't get to it. But I think that in agreement with you, I wish I would have had the sensibility to wait,
Mm,
because there is a lot of my stuff that has been dumped on Sion,
mm,
because I wasn't that far enough into the work once I became his mom. So just naturally, based on instincts, based on just upbringing and PTSD, all of the like trauma markers that we held on to already from
mm,
our
mhm,
childhood, automatically those things were like just being dumped on him. So he's the reason I started to work, because I just felt like I was in so much pain. I was
mm,
so angry. I was hurting so bad, and I felt like no one understood what I was going through, and I wanted to have someone to love me. Like that's
mm,
why I became a
mm,
mom. I wanted somebody to love me. I wanted someone to love back. I wanted purpose. Even though I was like really intelligent, had a degree and all these things, I just felt empty. I felt like I had nothing to live for. We lost dad, and then I just felt like I was empty. There was nothing for me to be here for. And I remember just praying and saying to God, like, give me a purpose, because or else just kill me. I don't want to be here. And when I got my son, that became my life's work, which was I was going to heal the things in my life, and I was going to ensure that who he got as a mom was going to be the mom I always said I wanted to be, and the mom that I always complained that I had. I didn't want her, and I knew that I had to work hard at it.
wow. That was so good. I almost felt like crying just now. Um, yeah. From my eyes of like when I was growing up, and I used to always come to your house in Harlem, and it always looked like everything was together.
Mm-hmm.
So I always was like, oh my God, I would love to live in Manhattan. I would love the doorman. And it was just, it felt like the house felt whole to me in the house. Cause look, your mom was accomplished. She had her life together. She had a boy and a girl, and y'all looked like you guys were together.
Right.
So to hear this now, it just feels like, whoa, I didn't know. You know what I mean?
Yes. And I think I learned to mask as well.
Mm-hmm.
My partner and I have been together for 5 years, and we're now getting to the place where I'm becoming honest, where I can speak some of the things that I felt like I could not speak, because we're taught to be loyal. We're taught not to talk about what goes on in our house. We're taught not to seek counsel. We're taught not to,
Mm-hmm.
you know, um, be weak or vulnerable and things like that. And so it did. And even when I engage in conversations with her now, she is not on the same page. Right? She doesn't see it the way I see it. She doesn't agree with the things I say. She don't remember the stories. Remember. right? We'll get back to the word remember. But
Mhm.
she doesn't she's not in agreement with myself. And um the way I look at it is you have two children and one's 43 and one's 41 and neither of them are in good standing with you. It speaks volumes, right?
Mhm.
It,
Mhm.
it isn't just like an accident why that happened, right? Especially I'm a boy mom. Boys are like ridiculous with their mothers. My son is like the bane of my existence, like literally. I can't use the bathroom without him. So imagine a son with like going long term years without ever engaging with his mom. There's something fractured there and there's something to be, spoken about, but she isn't ready. And I had to come to terms with that. But we were I was a Catholic school kid. I was a Catholic school kid. We had the doorman. She had her jobs,
Mhm.
which also was a part of the abuse, right? The part of the neglect, because I migrated here at 12 and she never was home. I had to cook and take care of us, even though when you guys came over, she might have been popping in from one of her jobs, but she wasn't going to
Yeah,
be
she was never really there.
there.
It's
She wasn't
true.
going to be there. So, thank God for the doorman. Nobody couldn't break into our apartment and, take advantage of us, so to speak, because of that reason. There's cameras all over our building, but we took care of ourselves, right? Or I took care of us most of the way. And so yeah, on the surface, everything looks great, but there were a lot of like physical abuse, psychological abuse, verbal abuse that were happening that no one knew about because we were taught to be silent.
Mm.
Yeah.
Wow, I'm sorry to
And
hear
how
that. I'm sorry to hear that.
profound is that silence now in your own life because you continue the cycle without being even asked to, just
Mm.
because of how um deep the trauma lies or goes.
Ooh, jeez.
Mhm.
Wow, I had no idea. I had no idea. Yeah, I'm definitely grateful for seasons that I felt like um I think I had a season where people disappeared and I was trying to figure out what was that about. Like I was realizing people were just moving on with their lives and I started to get kind of miserable and I felt like I was more angry. Um I definitely feel like a lot of absence of like not talking about things was the issue of like things building up. And definitely in a Jamaican household, they don't believe in therapy. They don't believe.
I'm a business to people.
Yeah, I remember I was watching Queenie, and then her niece was like, she needs to go to therapy, and the aunt is like, she don't need to get therapy. She just needs to breathe. And I'm like, what?
Mm-hmm.
So
Literally.
that is kind of like what we're used to, like you were saying, like don't tell our business. Like, do you know that breaking point for yourself? Like, I can't do this. Oh my God. Like, I need to go see somebody. Like,
Do I know the breaking point? Um, I am a lucky person. I
mm,
was born very spiritually inclined. So I have really intense spiritual gifts. So I've always been able to sense things that wasn't okay in my body. Things aren't okay. I'm sick. Like I can, and it isn't like I'm coughing sick. It's like I'm achy here, I'm hurting there. Like I have a headache nonstop. Like my body is like, hey, check in with me. Like something is up, something is off. And so I've always been uncomfortable in my situation. I've always been different. And I guess like that different is just me being so like really tapped in since I was really young and um always having a sense of like something isn't okay, something isn't right. And I grew up with my grandparents and see I was the only granddaughter for like 10 years. So my grandma and I were really, really, really close. And
mm,
I was her little girlfriend. So we kikied all the time.
mm-hmm.
But I always knew all the family business that was going on. And I always knew to stand around a corner and listen. So I learned a lot of like my family dynamics since I was really, really young
Yeah.
because I had that insight. And I didn't understand what that information was going to do for me as I was navigating through my healing, but it was really, really helpful because some of the anger I didn't need to like hold on to because like you said before, like hurt people hurt others, broken people, you know, do damage, right? And so I remember things since I was a kid, and I was like, oh, they're really messed up since I was young. Like I remember my grandma told me this, I remember hearing this, and I'm like, how could you really? And my therapist would work through that with me. She was like, so why are you even upset? Because you're seeing similar like dynamics in different households within your like mom sibling groups and like, you know, with your cousins. And so you already know like people are gonna behave in these kind of ways because of all these things. And then I learned EMDR. My therapist did EMDR. Don't ask me the acronyms. I'm sorry, people, look it up. It's a therapeutic model. And a part of EMDR is like a tapping. It's like really like tapping into yourself. And so my therapist used to do this like mindfulness where I would go to the spaces in my body that was holding on to things. And I would breathe through them and we would talk about what color it is, what shape it is, how does it feel, what's the mood. And then we would go as far as what age are you in that space that you held on to this thing. And so I learned how to do that 10 years ago. And so now that's like body scans every day, checking in with myself when I get off, like, you know, just to keep myself at a place. Because, of course, if you were in a traumatic, like, lifestyle, which I consider our lifestyle traumatic. I don't think that the trauma started at any one age and ended at any one age. I think it's just a continuum. I think even though we're adults, we're still living and stewing in that because our parents don't believe in the healing journey that we believe in. And so we're now trying to be healed and they're still operating in their spaces and we're still having to learn how to navigate through it. So, I mean, I think like that's a really long answer, but um just being tapped in into yourself is like, you know, how I, you know, manage navigating, I guess, and was able to like be sane here now. If sane is a subjective word, but you know, there's a little
Yeah.
nut in all of us.
Do you feel like all of us growing up very separately kind of um well how I view it is all of us growing up in different households and we weren't really taught to like be there for each other. Do you feel like that's one of the reasons why we have so much shit going on?
The first five of us were five of us
Mm,
and Alicia, we were because we grew up in the house together. Or
yes, yes.
Ananda and I used to go over for the weekends and spend time there. But the first five of us did. I think that even though we grew up in different households, and Jabari and I talked about us doing this episode together, and we kind of talked through some of like what it would be like for all of us to do it together. We have the same exact stories. It's not
Mm,
very different.
yeah.
Our father was an abused, neglected, and traumatized child
Mm,
who had children since he was a child as just a means of like a thing to do.
yeah.
And he did not have a father, and he didn't have a man to teach him what it looked like to be a father.
I mean, we
And
could talk
so,
about father trauma, okay?
yeah,
Because
yeah,
a lot of fathers don't learn how to be fathers.
right.
So it's like they don't know. Some of them just don't realize that, and they just like there's a kid, and all they know is provide in a way.
Right.
They
And
don't
our
know
dad was
emotional.
dope, right? Our dad was super fun. He was dope, and he would give
Mm-hmm.
money, and he would take us to the flyers places and do the flyers things with
Yep.
us. But when it comes to our needs as his children and having
Emotional.
dialogue, emotional,
Mm-hmm.
he could not get there. He could not
Yeah.
get there. And I think I was fortunate. And when Dexter and I talk, he says he's also fortunate enough to have certain conversations with dad. And so some of us have some semblance of a relationship and information. But I think that, and we're gonna get real touchy but serious. I think the issues between our mothers is one of the biggest catalysts in why our relationships as siblings broke down.
Yeah.
Um, And I think that had we had moms who were willing to push past their things and encourage
Mm,
our relationships, we would have
mm,
been closer, because dad definitely created space for us to do it and he wanted that. But I think our moms were a lot of the issue, that created the separation between us. And we didn't know as the kids, we want to defend our mom. I'm gonna defend my mom, even though sis
mm.
strong and wrong, out of line, out of order. You know what I'm saying? And but you're a kid and you feel like I'm protecting my mom from the
Yeah,
big bad wolf, his other baby mama. And
yeah.
I don't care if it's a kid over there, I'm protecting my mom. And I'm just gonna go along with
Mm,
it. And no one ever said, mind y'all business, y'all the children, stay out of it. Would have really, like, now when I reflect on it, I would have wished there was an adult that would have said, mind y'all business, stay out of it. Y'all go somewhere in the corner together and sit down. But that didn't happen. Like,
yeah,
dad
it's
was over here
unfortunate.
trying to hold it together, make time for us, which is why, if you ever remember, my birthday is when we would all get together. Important it was for him, for us to be together. Use my birthday as the time where, like, gather all the kids, we're gonna go hang out together for my birthday. And he was always so happy and grateful, because I always, like, I didn't care. I was like, this is what you
Mm.
want, I'm gonna give you whatever you want, let's all just get together. But I think that our mom's things with him and with each other got in our way of us being able to be really close as siblings.
Yeah, that's something I do feel like that's a huge part on why everybody was so separated. The moms had issues. And I felt like I always took the route of like, I don't know what's going on. I'm gonna stick my ass over here. Like I always took that route because that's how I feel like I was kind of raised that way.
Mm-hmm.
Like stay out of it. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. And by the time I was 21, I was just like, I don't know what's going on, and I couldn't comprehend on what was going on in the family because I was so young.
Right. And
I was
so
20.
much was going on, right? And always
It's so much was going on. By the time I'm like 28, I'm just like, yo, what is going on? That happened. This happened. I just, I just wish I would have been more inclined to like, but I, at the same time, I have a personality that I like to stay out of like drama. I'm here to listen to it. I'm here to be like, oh, word. But I'm also like, oh, don't get me involved. Also, but I wish I would. It'd have been more of a like, let's everybody really do this and sit down and talk.
yeah,
And now we're at a point. I feel like for some people it's too late, and other people are just like, it is what's gonna be.
whichever
You know?
way. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the sad part about it is, not we are the ones that are bearing the consequence, but we didn't start it and we didn't create it. But we're
Yeah.
bearing the consequence, and our children, right, are bearing the consequence of not knowing their family and things like that. So, it's really unfortunate. And I think that was, right, a part of my attitude and my always being the rowdy rah rah rah. I think
Yeah.
because I was the rowdy rah rah rah, nobody ever listened to what I was saying. Like, I
Yeah.
was fighting for my brothers and my sisters. I was fighting for my
At
siblings'
the end of
love.
the day, in hindsight, I can realize it now.
Right. But I
Yeah.
feel like nobody could have heard that then, because I was the person who just wanted my daddy to be happy. My daddy is
Mm,
my everything, my whole, because to be honest, right? He was everything the only thing I had. My mom was so mean to me because I
mm,
loved him so much. She was so unkind to me because of my relationship with him. He was
wow.
all I had. And so I cling to anything for him, and anything he wanted. Like, even my birthday, like I said, I would sacrifice me time. Just you taking me out and you being with me and all about me. Nope. Let my brothers and my sisters come and we all gonna be together, because that meant the world to him. And anything he wanted, I wanted to please him so bad, because I always felt so hurt, because I felt like my siblings never thanked me for my sacrifice. And I
Mm,
felt like I gave up so much my whole life for my siblings to have their dad, have time with him, have time with all of us. And nobody ever recognized that all these summers we was getting together, it was Jamila's birthday.
yeah.
And that was where my anger came from, because I just felt like you guys should be more grateful towards me, because I sacrificed so much, because he wouldn't have showed up if
Yeah.
it what he wouldn't have came. He got his lifestyle and he doing his own thing. Like, But because I knew I wanted my brothers and my sisters to be together. I knew he wanted it, but he wasn't going to make space for it or time. And the other part of that is I had to plan those trips. I had to
Yeah.
figure out where we were going to go. I had to figure out what we were going to do, when we were going to do it, how I was going to get everybody together. You had motion sickness. You were always throwing up in the car. We had to figure out how often we needed to stop so you weren't really, really sick. Like, remember, I was 13, 14, 15 years old having to
Hmm.
manage all of that. And that's where a lot of my anger came. And I was just like, I'm done with them. When he
Yeah.
passed, I was like, I'm done with them because nobody cares about my sacrifice. Nobody knows how much I did, right? Like
Hmm.
when he got arrested before he got deported the last time, I jumped out of bed at 2 a.m. and then they called me, go get dad. I had many of those nights when I'm the one down at the precinct
Yeah.
running, when nobody else knew anything that was going on, and packing up apartments before the police raided it, moving shit
Wow.
places, my sacrifice. And I always was
Jeez.
so angry because I felt like I sacrificed so much for my siblings to see dad, to hear from dad, to be with him, to get things from him, to go school shopping for you guys. Homeboy gave me $500, $1,000, and was like, "Yeah, go to Staples. I'm gonna pick you up." And he would drop me off, and I would be 3 carts in Staples picking up everybody's school supplies. And he would be like, "Yeah, all right, let's go to Brooklyn and drop them off. Let's go here at Queens, drop them off." And I'm like 14, 15. And my mom is
Mm.
like, "Why are you doing this? Those are not your children." And I'm having to hear her, right? And having to deal with all of that from her. You know what I mean? And it's just like, I love my daddy. I want my daddy to be happy. I want my daddy's kids to be happy because my dad is happy. I want everybody to have a good time. But again, we have the mommies who they not flowing. And so once one kid is a part of something, the other mom's like, I don't want you to be like, and I'm just
A
like,
mess.
you
A
know what I mean?
mess. Yeah.
It's crazy. And even now, as we're adults, there's so much we don't know. So that's why we just keep staying in our corners to get to the point where I don't care about nothing y'all got going on. These are my siblings. And that's what I told Jabari. I want you to get to know me as the woman I am, not your sister that you used to know.
That's what I was gonna say. Like, it's hard sometimes for some people because they, I feel like, how can I word this in a way of like not sounding crazy? But some people forget that there's personal growth for others, and they don't realize that they keep seeing people how they used to be
Yeah.
instead of realizing, hey, this person might have changed within the last couple years since you've seen them 10 years properly. You know what I mean?
Right.
I think I don't know if a lot of people are there yet to realize that.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
in some people's eyes, I could still be 21 years old in their eyes, and they won't even see the person I am today. And I finally been okay enough to be like, I'm okay. However you see me, because I'm not here to change your mind. It's however else, and I want to leave some of that alone because it's so difficult. The more you're trying to prove to other people, hey, I'm changed, I'm changed. It's so like draining. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's hard. I feel like crying because it's so hard because I've been there too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing also about it is, as you're saying that, I'm thinking, when was the last point in your life that I actually knew something about you
Yeah.
other than what social media said, like showed me?
Yeah.
I'm thinking back, I don't have anything to judge you on. I don't know you. Like,
Yeah.
I can say that honestly, like, whatever I would say about you would be speculation. I don't know
Yeah.
anything about you to say what kind of character you have, what kind of person
Mhm.
you are. Like, who I've never met your adult self. I've never hung out
Yeah.
with your adult self. Like,
That's true. Cause you
yeah,
know what though? Like what I perceive of you before, it was like Jamila always has an attitude. She is the rah rah rah. I'm very like, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do around her because I don't know what was gonna set you off. But I felt
right,
like that was always where I stood.
hmm,
And when I feel like that, I just always tippy toe.
right,
I'm like, oh, what? I don't know how they're gonna react. Oh, okay, because I just automatically think like that. But you're right, because in the last like time I saw you, I was like, honestly, she's different now. And even like seeing in the family group chat, you're different now. And I'm just like, people should really understand that. Like, you are on your personal journey, and I feel sorry for other people that they just want to stay the same.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, don't get
And
me wrong. I'm still the sister that will bust, you know what I'm saying? And we'll get up, you know what I'm saying?
okay, we're not
If we
completely all
gotta,
the way healed. I
you
understand.
know what I'm saying? If we got to get to it, we got to get to it. But that isn't my first response
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
Because again, as you go through your healing, see, that's a trauma response, right? And people didn't
Mm,
understand that. If I always felt like I was under the attack, I was going to always be in a defensive state of response, right? And I always felt
yeah.
like everybody always made me responsible for everything. I was always the person that was always like, you know what the crazy thing is? Everyone always came to me to fix everything. And when I did it my own way, then I'm the bad person. I'm like, I wasn't even in this. I was over here minding my business, and you came over here where I was minding my business and pulled me into this. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I ain't have nothing to do with it. And because I'm the big mouth, the one who's vocal, the one who's gonna be confrontational in your face, because of course I'm a Leo all around. Sorry, Leo energy, real big, real, you know what I'm saying, raw, all that. And so it's like I'm all people always get me and stuff, and I'm like, and I'm a ride for my siblings. I'm a ride for my family.
Yeah.
So it's always been that. And it's really unfortunate because I think I've gotten a bad rap for that in this family.
Yeah.
And I'm
You
just
have.
like, you know how far I was minding my own BI when somebody brought me into this. And I just took it over like I knew what was going on because they gave me like 3 sentences. And I was like, ah, you know what I'm saying? Like, and I didn't even know what was going on. I was over here minding my neck. But the truth is, like, I'm really like at a place now where let's talk through it, right? And I have a different value for what it means to like have relationships with family.
Yeah.
And at this
Mhm.
stage, like my son really does not know his aunts and uncles. You know what I mean?
And
Like,
that's the sad part, I think.
yeah,
That's what I would get sad about. Like, have children, are they gonna know their cousins? Like, that's something that I always get sad about. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And it is sad, and it's lonely for him. He's the only child. It's lonely for him. You know, one of the
Only
reasons why he's the
children.
only child, I was afraid that he was gonna have the life that I had with siblings.
What? Oh
That's
my
why I'm 41. He's gonna be 13. I never had another child. Because I was so scared that, and when I was pregnant with him, I was like, God, please don't give me a daughter. I was terrified I was gonna have a daughter because I didn't want the same relationship with her as I have with my mom. And so
oh
it's like
wow.
that's one of the big things I want people to take away from this conversation: the fear that trauma creates in your life. You're afraid of your shadow. You're afraid to make decisions. You're afraid of yourself. You're afraid. You don't trust your own instincts, right?
Wow.
Because you've seen it play out in front of you, right? And you're like, well, what's going to be different? This is what my life looked like. How is that going to be different? In addition to, I've seen my brothers do it. I've seen my brothers replicate our story with their own children.
Yeah.
And so now I'm like, Ananda and I haven't seen each other in 12 years because of accountability. Because my question to him is, how could you do this to your own kid when you bear the pain of that from it was being done to you? How could you
Yeah.
replicate that? How could you find comfort in replicating that? You know, sis, like we grown, and we still cry in our beds
Yeah. Yeah.
because the pain's still real. And there's sometimes when you in spaces with people and you're like, whoa, you remind me of my mother. You remind me of that brother. And that was a
Mm,
lot for me. And I need to leave now. I have social anxiety because of that. Because I'm just
mm,
like, I don't know who I'm going to walk into the room with. And I don't want to have to karate chop somebody because now I'm in a triggered space because something came up, because you said something in a way or you did something in a way,
yeah.
and I'm activated, right?
Yeah.
And that's real.
Activate.
Yes, I'm like people say triggered a lot, but the real like clinical
Activated.
word now we're moving to is like being activated, right?
Yes.
Think about like PTSD and what it looks like when someone's activated. you're in full on, like, I'm there, it's happening now. That's an activation. That ain't no
Yeah.
trigger. Like, a trigger is something that may get you to a place of activation, but I'm fully activated at this point, right? And so, like, a part of this takeaway that I would love for people to get is, how do we access those things that are those triggers, quote, slash activation points, right?
Yeah.
And how do you work through those things? Because those things are the things that's going to cause you to look like the bad guy, are going to cause you to look like the one who always act out everywhere we go, the one who's always sloppy drunk,
Hmm.
because it shows up in many different forms for different people, right?
It came out in drunkenness for me. I was so like not well. And I realized that it had a connection to losing daddy and then feeling like I had no friends. I feel like I had to go out to feel appreciated. Camilla's drunk. Camilla's a good time when she's drunk. So I realized those two connected around the same time, which is crazy to me. I didn't even realize that that's how I dealt with it.
Yeah, that was your coping mechanism.
Didn't even
Yeah.
notice it.
And you know what? It was mine too.
Wow.
Like, I went really, really dark, and I just isolated myself, and I went into a really, really gloomy place. And I was sober since I was 21, because I was drinking a lot, just because I was drinking since I was 16, just to manage being at home.
Wow.
I was full on alcoholic since I was 16. Like, and then I moved to
Mm-mm.
Illinois with one of my uncles, and that was his ask. Once you come to my house, you have to give up drinking, because Anande knew I was having this issue, and so he told my uncle, and my uncle was like, "No alcohol drinking in my house. You can't have alcohol while you're here." And so that was one of the rules. So, and I was 21, and I was just like, 21 is now I could do it without any issue. And he's like, he would mark the bottles in his house to make sure I didn't take a drink out of it. How
Get
humiliating,
out.
right? Like, that was really humiliating. And I was like, so when dad passed, I was like, how am I gonna cope? And I did the drinking for a while, and then I got promiscuous, because I was so angry and I was in so much pain, and I didn't have an outlet. And like, how was I gonna get this out of me? Right?
Wow.
How was I gonna release the pain of what I felt? And
Mm.
back then I was fully in the streets, and I was like, yo, we
Not fully in
hunting
the
him.
streets.
Like, fully in the streets, like gun toting, fully in the street. You know what I'm saying? So now I'm in Jamaica. After all of you guys came home, I'm in Jamaica for a month, because now I'm
I
in the streets
heard.
every
I
day.
heard.
Oh yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I'm in the streets every day. Oh, you killed my dad? Like, I'm in every day. I'm hitting the block.
What?
Like, I'm finding you. Oh yeah, like me and my crew.
Crazy.
It's not a game. So I I wanted blood so bad. Like, I didn't know how to get that. Like, I don't even know what the word is. Like, you know, when the moon shine on the wolf and he turned into the werewolf or whatever. Like, I
Yeah.
was that person, and I needed, like, you know what I
Mm.
mean? Like, because, again, remember, dad was my savior. That
Yeah.
was my protector. And my
Mm.
protector was gone. My guidance was gone. Like, that was who I went to about life decisions, right? And now I'm out here in the world alone, waiting for my mom to, like, step up to the plate to be a mom now, because dad is gone and she's gonna be a parent now. And I'm just like, not so much.